Hi, welcome to the session number 10, video number 5, which is the last session for the video for this particular session. Control cost. Control cost process within cost management knowledge area. Control cost is one of the crucial processes within the cost management knowledge area. So let's dig deeper and see how exactly you could control the cost within your project. Control costs process is the process of monitoring and controlling the status of the project to update the project costs and managing changes to the cost baseline. In this process, you check whether you are meeting your cost requirements, whether you are meeting your cost baseline you have constituted in the planning process group. And this process provides the means to recognize variance from the plan. In this process, how to detect any variance from the baseline is defined, and also which method, which tool, which technique will be used to recognize variances from the scope baseline are defined in this control cost process. Any changes to the project should be prevented first, since changes will bring extra cost to the project. We say this frequently that project manager must prevent any unnecessary changes to the project because these cause delays in the project and also increase the scope. And also from the cost management point of view, it will bring extra cost to the project because changes mean an additional scope and additional time that will be performed, an additional activity that will be performed in your project. And respectively, it will bring additional time and also additional cost to the project. Therefore, as a project manager, your primary responsibility is to prevent any unnecessary changes. And if there are any factors, any reasons causing as frequent change in your project, you have to include those factors to avoid changes in your projects. However, the agile approach is quite different. Agile is responsive for changes. Therefore, the approach, the mindset is to adapt the changes and support the customers to make changes during the project, even at a later part of the project development. So this is according to the traditional approach. Controlling cost is to ensure that minimal changes are occurred during the project execution. Progress reporting. Project progress is used to check whether the project is on track. And when you check your project progress, if there are things going wrong, for example, if your project is behind schedule or over budget, you have to take corrective action in order to get back on track in your project. There are tools and techniques used for checking the project progress in your projects, and earned value management is one of the techniques used for the progress tracking. We will be going over the details of terms used in earned value management, and also you will see the formulas and examples of how these earned value management formulas are used in checking the progress of a project. How much % of work is accomplished is determined by asking the person complete to the performer of the activity in projects. For example, during your project progress checks, in order to determine the overall completion of the project percentage. For example, you have to ask each resource of your project at what % he or she in his or her task, because These person completes each task constitute the overall person complete of the project. And this is generally done by asking to each resource of a project at what person he or she is in his specific tasks. Example, if you are the project manager of your team, and if there is a software developer working specifically which was estimated as 10 days, and in the 5th day you go and ask him what person he or she is on his task, and if he says that I'm at 40%, you might say that he should be at 50%. So he's little behind than the expected progress. Or if he says I'm 60% of the scheme of the 5th day, then you might say that okay, he's a little bit further than the plan. These kind of progress checks are generally done by asking person complete of each activity to the performer of the activity in projects. But this is not the case in every project. If person complete cannot be guessed by performer, following approach can be applied. There are 3 approaches for cause and complete rates of activities. First one is 50-50 rule. In this approach, an activity is considered 50% complete when it begins and 50% credit for when it's finished. So in this approach, when an activity is started, by default it's marked as 50% complete, and when it's finished it's marked as 100%. The second is 20-80 rule. In this approach, 20% complete when it begins and 80% credit for when it finishes. So as soon as a task, an activity starts, the person complete is considered to be 20% until it's fully done. The third approach is 0 and 100% rule. Obviously, until an activity is fully done, you say it's 0% complete. Once it's fully done, then you say it's 100% complete. Earned value management. Earned value management is abbreviated as EVM. And this is a technique used to measure project performance against scope, schedule, and cost baselines. This is very, very important. EVM, earned value management, is constituted around 3 fundamental terms: planned value, earned value, and actual cost. We have to understand these 3 terms very well in order to understand the overall EVM. And in order to answer the EVM questions properly, use them in your project situations effectively. Earned value management. First term that we are going to discuss is planned value. Planned value is the estimated value of the work plan, and it's abbreviated as PV. Let's say during planning of your project, a specific activity was planned as 10 days. Then you can say that planned value of the activity is 10 days. Second one is the earned value. Earned value is abbreviated as EV, and it defines the estimated value of work actually accomplished. Let's remember our activity again, which was estimated as 10 days. But during execution, your project let's say this activity has been completed in 9 days. So although it has been completed in 9 days, its earned value is 10 days because it was estimated as 10 days. Actual cost, abbreviated as AC, is the cost incurred for the work accomplished. Let's say for our specific activity, you have estimated it to be completed in 10 days within $10,000 of cost. But you have completed it in 9 days within $11,000. So your actual cost is how much you paid actually when it's finished. Planned activity finished in your project. So in this case, the actual cost for the specific activity is 11,000 USD. Now we will see these three terms and we'll use a specific example. Here is an example scenario. For instance, you started a house renovation project. You plan to spend $100,000 in total for the project and finish the project in 100 days. Today is the 20th day after starting the project. Based on your plan, you should have spent $20,000 and completed 20% of the total work in 20 days of your project. But you spent $17,000 and completed 18% of the total work. Now let's first look at the planned value of this example scenario. You should have spent $20,000 and completed 20% of the total work in 20 days of your project. This was your initial plan. Therefore, your planned value is 20 days, which is formed by 20% multiplied by 100 days or time related calculations. And your planned value is 200,000 for cost related calculations because you have planned that you should have spent 200,000. Therefore, your planned value is $200,000 for this scenario. Now we will see the earned value data of this scenario. You spent 17,000 and completed 18% of the total work. So earned value is 18 days because you have completed 18% of the overall 100 days of the total project work. And it gives us earned value of 18 days for the time related calculations. Earned value is 18,000 for cost related calculations because similarly 18% of the total work has been completed, and since our total work was costing 100,000, 18% of it makes 18,000 as earned value. Now we'll look to the actual cost of the project. Today is the 20th day after starting the project, but you spent $17,000. So actual cost is 20 days for time related calculations because we are at the 20th day of the project and actual cost spent is 17,000 for the cost related calculations because we have actually spent $17,000. Now we will look into the variance formulas. Variances in earned value management. Our first term is schedule variance, abbreviated as SV. Schedule variance is measure of schedule performance, and it's calculated by subtracting the planned value of the project from the earned value of the project. If schedule variance of the project is less than 0, it means your project is behind schedule. If schedule variance equals to 0, it means that your project is on track. And if the schedule variance is greater than 0, your project is ahead of the schedule. And next term is cost variance. Cost variance, abbreviated as CV, and it defines the amount of budget, deficit or surplus. It's calculated by subtracting the actual cost of the project from the earned value of the project. And if cost variance is less than 0, your project is over budget. If cost variance is equal to 0, then your project is on budget as you planned. And if your cost variance is greater than 0, then this means you are under the budget. You will spend less than you plan on your project. Now let's define the indexes in various calculations in earned value management. First one is Schedule Performance Index, abbreviated as SPI. An SPI is a measure of schedule efficiency. It's calculated by dividing the earned value of the project by the planned value of the project. If schedule performance index is less than 1, your project is behind schedule. If your schedule performance index is equal to 1, then your project is on track as planned. If your schedule performance index is greater than 1, your project is ahead of schedule. Now let's have a look at Cost Performance Index, which is abbreviated as CPI. It's abbreviated as CPI, as we discussed, and it's a measure of cost efficiency. CPI is calculated by dividing the earned value of the project by the actual cost of the project. If the CPI is less than 1, your project is over budget. If CPI is equals to 1, then your project is on budget as you plan. And finally, if your CPI is greater than 1, your project is under budget. Now we will calculate these variances in our example scenario. First, we will calculate the schedule variance. If you remember, schedule variance was found by subtracting the planned value from the earned value of the project. Our earned value was 18 days and planned value was 20 days. And schedule variance gives us 2 days in this formula. Since schedule variance is less than 0, our house renovation project is behind schedule. Cost variance calculation. Cost variance was calculated by subtracting the actual cost of the project from the earned value of the project. Our earned value was 18,000 and our actual cost was 17,000. This gives us cost variance as $1,000. So our cost variance is greater than 0. So we conclude that the house renovation project is under budget. We spent less than we planned in the project as of 20th day. Schedule Performance Index calculation. It's abbreviated as SPI. SPI was found by dividing earned value of the project to planned value of the project. Our earned value was 18 days and planned value was 20 days. And this gives us SPI as 0.9. Since SPI is less than 1, our project is behind schedule. So it's consistent with the conclusion be found after schedule variance. Now we will calculate the CPI, Cost Performance Index. CPI was found by dividing the earned value to actual cost. And if you substitute the earned value and actual cost in the formula, we find the CPI as 1.06. CPI is greater than 1 and we conclude that the project is under budget. And it's also consistent with what we have found in cost variance calculation. Forecasting in EVM, Earned Value Management. First term in forecasting in Earned Value Management defines the budget at completion, which is also abbreviated as BAC. BAC is the sum of all budgets established for the work to be performed. So it defines the overall money that you will be spending for your project that you have planned in the beginning of your project. And the next term, estimate at completion, otherwise as EAC, is the expected total cost of completing all work. Sum of actual cost to date and estimate to complete. So the difference between budget at completion and estimate at completion are the budget at completion is determined at the time of determined budget process. So it's the end of scheduling process. But estimate at completion is forecasted during execution of the project. Or you start your project, you have some actual cost during your project, and you will make a new re-estimation for the remaining work. And you come up these remaining estimations with the actual cost of the project to find the estimated completion ratio of the project. And the next term, estimate at completion, otherwise as EAC, is the expected total cost of completing all work. Sum of actual cost to date and estimate to complete. So the difference between budget at completion and estimate at completion are the budget at completion is determined at the time of determining budget process. So it's the end of scheduling process. But estimate at completion is forecasted during the execution of the project. You have some actual cost during your project and you will make a new re-estimation for the remaining work, and you will come up with these remaining estimation with the actual cost of the project to find the estimated completion ratio of your project. Estimate at completion is found by aggregating the actual cost to date with the bottom-up estimate to complete value of your project. And bottom-up estimate to complete can be found by estimating the remaining work to be completed in your project, instead of estimating the remaining work to be completed in your project. You can find the EAC, estimate at completion, by three different approaches using earned value: SPI, Schedule Performance Index, and CPI, Cost Performance Index values. First approach assumes that all future estimate to complete work will be accomplished at the budgeted rate. And this approach calculates the EAC as the actual cost plus budgeted completion minus earned value. And this equation, budgeted completion minus earned value, is the estimate to complete value of the remaining work to be completed. So as you see, it assumes that budgeted completion is still valid, and by subtracting the earned value from budgeted completion value, estimate to complete is found in this formula. For example, due to several change or due to several delays in your project, your budgeted completion might not be variable in some area in your project. And if you have calculated a new estimated completion value, then you can calculate TCPI as budgeted completion minus earned value over estimated completion minus actual cost value. The difference between the first and the second one is in the denominator of the second formula. You will replace budgeted completion with estimated completion only. And if TCPI is less than 1 in a project, it's easier to complete in wasted completion or estimated completion of your project. If TCPI equals to 1, is same to complete your project in budgeted completion or estimated completion. And if TCPI is greater than 1, then it's harder to complete your project in budget completion or estimated completion. The second approach assumes that the cost performance achieved till now is expected to continue in the future. So in this formula, the TCPI performance till now in the project will be projected in the future of the project as well. And in this approach, estimated completion is found by dividing the budget at completion value to cost performance index. And the third approach assumes that the estimate to complete work will be performed at an efficiency rate that considers both the cost schedule performance indices. So in this approach, cost performance index and the schedule performance index achieved until now is assumed to be projected in the future of the project as well. And this approach calculates the estimated completion as actual cost plus budgeted completion minus earned value over CPI multiplied by SPI. And this equation, the second part of the formula, budgeted completion minus earned value over CPI multiplied by SPI, represents the remaining work to be completed. In other words, estimate to complete. Estimate to complete, or ETC. ETC is the expected cost to finish all the remaining project work. And after we have calculated the estimated completion, we can find the estimate to complete by subtracting the earned value from the estimated completion measure. This is how we can find this estimate to complete value with a formula, but we can find estimate to complete value with doing a re-estimation of all remaining work in your project. Variance at completion, which is abbreviated as VAC, and it represents the amount of budget deficit or surplus expressed as the difference between BAC and EAC. So as you see in the formula, variance at completion equals the budget at completion minus estimate at completion. So if variance at completion is less than 0, project will be completed over planned budget. You will exceed your initial planned budget. If variance at completion equals 0, then your project will be completed on planned budget. And if variance at completion is greater than 0, then project will be completed under planned budget. In other words, you'll be spending less than you plan at the end of your project. To complete performance index, TCPI. TCPI is a measure of the cost performance that is required to be achieved in order to meet budget. This index defines how hard or how easy to complete your project in your initial plan according to your initial plan budget or in your estimated completion value. As you see, TCPI is found by budget at completion minus earned value over budget at completion minus actual cost value. Note that during your project, budget at completion value might not be no longer variable. Budget at completion BAC value. BAC is a sum of all budgets established for the work to be performed. So it defines the overall money that you will be spending for your project that you have planned in the beginning of your project. Now we'll calculate these forecasting values for our example scenario. First, we will calculate the budget at completion. Actually, this is not a calculation. This was initially given. In this scenario, you plan to spend 100,000 for the project. So you have already your budgeted completion value defined in this scenario, that is $100,000. Now we will calculate the estimate at completion. We will use three approaches to find three different estimate at completion values. In order to find EAC, with first approach, we have aggregated actual cost with the budget at completion value and then subtracted it from the earned value. And this result in $99,000 as the EAC. Value of the project for first approach. In the second approach, estimated completion was found by budgeted completion over CPI. When we substituted the budget at completion and CPI using the formula, we found the estimated completion value as $94,340. And the third approach, when we substitute the actual cost, budget at completion, earned value, CPI times SPI values, we have found estimated at completion as $102,954. As you see, you have three different estimated completion values in three different approaches. Estimate to complete calculation. Estimate to complete was earned by subtracting the earned value from the estimate at completion value. When we substituted the estimate at completion value, we found in third approach and the earned value, we found estimate to complete as $84,954. Note that Here I have used EAC value we have found in third approach. If you use other EAC values we found in the first and second approaches, you will have different results. Variance at completion was found by subtracting the EAC value from the BAC. When we substituted BAC and EAC in the formula, we found VAC as minus 2,954 since VAC is less than 0. We can conclude that the project will be completed over plan budget. So you will be spending more than you plan in your project. To complete performance index, TCPI. Based on BAC, if you remember, there are two approaches when calculating TCPI. Based on BAC and based on EAC. First, we will calculate the TCPI based on BAC. When we substitute BAC earned value and actual cost values in formula, we found TCPI at 0.988. And since TCPI is less than 1, we can conclude that it's easier to complete project at budget at completion value. So it's easier to complete project as 100,000 budget. Now if we calculate the TCPI based on EAC, that is estimate at completion, we will replace EAC in the denominator, and when we substituted EAC on value, EAC and AC values in the formula, here you find the TCPI as 0.954. TCPI less than 1, so we can conclude that it's easier to complete project at new estimate at completion value. It's easier to complete the project at 102,954 of budget. TCPI based on EAC is less than TCPI based on EAC. So we can conclude from these calculations that it's easier to complete project in new estimation EAC compared to BAC. If you think that 100,000 is less than 102,954, so since EAC is greater than BAC, it's of course easier to complete your project in your new EAC value compared to BAC. Now we have almost completed the process control cost, and now let's have a look at some of the important notes for earned value management formulas. If you are using earned value in a formula, you have to put earned value first in your formula. It always comes first in the formula. If it's a variance formula, then it's earned value minus something. For example, earned value minus actual cost, earned value minus planned value, etc. If it's an index formula, it's earned value over something or earned value divided by something. Like earned value over cost, earned value over planned value. If formula is related to cost, use actual cost. If formula is related to schedule, use planned value. For variances, negative is bad, positive is good. For example, if schedule variance is negative, you are behind the schedule. If cost variance is negative, you are over budget. Sorry, if the cost variance is negative, you are over budget. If schedule variance is positive, you are ahead of schedule. If cost variance is positive, you are under budget. For indexes, if it's greater than 1, it's good. For example, if CPI is greater than 1, you are under budget. If CPI is greater than 1, you are ahead of the schedule. But if the CPI is greater than 1, it's harder to complete your project at your BAC or EAC. And finally, for indexes, if it's lower than 1, it's bad. For example, if your SPI is lower than 1, then you are behind the schedule. And similarly, if your CPI is lower than 1, you are over budget. But for TCPI, this logic works in the opposition direction. If the CPI is less than 1, then you conclude that it's easier to complete your project at your BAC or EAC, depending on what value you have taken in your formula. This figure shows an earned value data for a project over budget and behind schedule. As you see on the date, earned value is under the planned value line, and also it's under the actual cost line. So your earned value is less than planned value. So you are behind schedule and earned value is less than actual cost. So you are also over budgeted to date as per the graph. And as you see, actual cost is then projected to the estimate to complete to find the estimated of completion value. And as you see, plan will you end in BAC at time of the figure, and there is a management reserve at the top. But as you see, new estimated accomplishing shows that the project will exceed the project budget. Note that earned value is an effective tool for measuring performance and determining the needs to request any changes needed. As you see, we have gone through an example scenario. We have found that the project is behind schedule but under budget. For example, in this case, you can put extra resources to your project to be on track. In other words, rush the project in order to meet the schedule because you are under budget, which means you can spend extra money to meet your scheduled projects. Example, this is an example of corrective action, and corrective action is a form of changing any project situations based on your performance and the progress. Control cost process will result in change request including corrective actions. And corrective action is a form of change request. Control cost process will result in change request including corrective and preventive actions. And we have said already, depending on your performance measures, if you have found variances from your baseline of your project, you have to take corrective and preventive measures in order to get back on track in your project, or in order to prevent any featured problems in your project. That's all about cost management, and hope you enjoyed. In case there are any things that are not clear, I urge you to go back, listen to it again, watch it. If you still don't understand, please get in touch with me. So up next is risk management And I'm sure that is another important knowledge area that you must study. So I will see you there.